Well, as we mentioned, the Senate passing the budget bill by the narrowest of margins. It was a tie-breaking vote from Vice President Vance. What this bill could mean in the long term for spending and debt and deficits and so much more. Joining us now from the White House in an exclusive interview is Russell Vought, Director of the Office of Management and Budget. And Director Vought, it's great to have you on Overtime. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the fact that we did have one big, beautiful bill squeak through the Senate. It's going back to the House now. Can this bill get to President Trump's desk by the end of this week? How important is that deadline?
I think so. And I think it's important to stay on the time frame that the president has put forward. We made a lot of progress this week in the Senate, and we're looking forward to having ongoing conversations with conservatives in the House and others to get this thing done this week and to get it to the president's desk.
The Senate version of this bill changes the math on cuts versus spending. How are you calculating that, especially when folks like the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget are saying that this is going to add over $4 trillion to the national debt through 2034, which would be $1 trillion more than the House-passed bill?
Again, the fiscal watchdogs on the outside are playing artificial games with the baselines. They're choosing to not assume current tax relief that is in law. Now, the Senate goes further than the House did in providing additional tax relief. One of the things they do is to provide more certainty to businesses by having the business tax cuts extended for a longer period of time. But that doesn't reduce all of the fact that they have $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings in the bill that more than pays for the additional tax relief that is provided and any spending in the bill. So this is a net deficit reduction in this bill, and it's something that is fiscally responsible. $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings. Again, the biggest thing we've ever seen is $800 billion in 1997, and this doubles that in this one bill. It is a historic bill. It has all of the things that the president ran on. We need to get it to the president's desk.
So Elon Musk has been very critical, continues to be critical of this bill. I think escalating rhetoric aside, be it the subsidies or new political parties, et cetera, his fundamental criticism has been that this bill is going to balloon the deficit and increase the debt. Some of the holdouts we've seen, Republican lawmakers in both houses, have been making similar arguments as well. I realize you just talked about $1.6 trillion in cuts, but how do you respond to those folks?
Again, I would just continue to point out the degree to which this bill has deficit reduction and historic mandatory savings, regardless of what the other things that are in the bill, border security, defense spending, historic tax relief. This is an incredible bill as it pertains to just fiscal responsibility. And this isn't a budget bill. This is the entirety of the first year's agenda on behalf of the president. So this is an enormous step forward. We haven't had anything like this for 30 years. We put $1.6 trillion in mandatory savings for the first time since the 1990s, and somehow this doesn't move the ball forward. We've had futility in this town for decades. This bill changes that.
I hear you and what you're saying there, Russell, but I believe the American people are also concerned with what the philosophy here is when it comes to government employment and slimming it down. Is this extreme weight loss that's healthy, or is this an amputation? We're hearing about scientists, data analysts, specialists being released or discouraged. Air traffic control clearly needs funding. What's your philosophy and approach to government work that is certain to make sure that it's efficient and not just eliminated?
Sure. And again, those are discussions that are totally unrelated to the reconciliation bill, the one big, beautiful bill. What you're referring to is our efforts to downsize and to make more efficient the federal government. And what I would say is we have gone after the bureaucracy that is woke and weaponized. We are not going after the legitimate parts of government that we just want to make better and to do the things that a federal government should do. But we also know that every agency has kind of had aspects of it, parts of its bureaucracy that are been aimed at the American people and just wasteful, and also given over to CRT and woke ideology. And we've put forward in our budget for next year $163 billion in cuts, the lowest since 2017. If you adjust it for inflation, the lowest for 2000. And we're going after that. It is all surgical. It is not meat axe. And it is something that we believe the American people are resonating with it because they have been subject to this type of bureaucracy for the last several years.
It's worth re-stressing here that you cannot include discretionary savings via, for example, DOGE cuts in a reconciliation package, very specific, and I know you've talked about this numerous times, very specific rules about what can and cannot be included in legislation such as that we're seeing go through Congress right now. You have started to send rescissions packages to Congress. Is there an appetite from lawmakers for more?
There is. We passed out of the House a $9.4 billion rescissions cut package that is largely the Corporation for Public Broadcasting billion, and then the rest of it is foreign aid, the worst aspects of foreign aid. We're having very good conversations in the Senate. I expect the Senate to move that package after they catch their breath from the reconciliation bill. And once that passes, we're more than willing to send up additional rescissions package. We do want to see it passed because it impacts procedurally the flexibility that we have to use other executive tools that are at our disposal. So we are very committed to making all of the DOGE savings and other things that we have found permanent, and we are in the process of doing that. But if you're focused on this week's news, you're going to be focused on the reconciliation side, and it's really important to remember this is just one aspect of our cost-cutting initiative, just one. We could talk about tariffs bringing $3 trillion. We could talk about the discretionary cuts that are in play. In our first 6 months, we were racking up enormous historic wins as it pertains to getting on the road to balancing the budget. It's just each step, each step.
Yeah, let's talk about tariffs, especially because we have some of these trade deadlines kicking in as soon as next week. We did get those numbers, more than $100 billion released yesterday, tied to tariffs and custom duties that have been collected since President Trump took office. How much does that factor into the budget? How much does that factor into your outlook for the budget, not only this year, but beyond?
A lot. Right now, we're on a schedule for about $3 trillion over 10 years. This is at the Liberation Day pause levels. And so we're very, very excited about where we are with regard to our tariff revenue, and we only think that will increase. And so this is a major and new feature of our fiscal planning. This is not something that you have seen in quite some time. President Trump is making another paradigm shift by having this be a part of the conversation about balancing the budget. And I think what you're seeing is people, particularly on the Hill, be more receptive to this because all of the fear tactics that people have brought with regard to this subject are not coming coming to fruition. And as a result, we're able to begin to plan, and we're seeing it in real time as the president has articulated with the latest numbers since we've come into office.